Badra Pra, a name destined to be etched in the annals of history, is a planet strategically positioned at the very edge of human space. This planet, situated at the crossroads of several vital supply lanes and commerce hubs, functioned as an impregnable fortress. Its location was critical, serving as the only passage through a treacherous region known for the disappearance of ships that dared to venture into the twin nebulas, from which only space wildlife ever returned. As such, Badra Pra held immense strategic importance, acting as a launch point for counterattacks in any direction, and as a crucial choke point that was nearly impossible to breach without substantial resource and manpower costs. If an enemy were to capture this planet, they could strike directly at the heart of humanity. This is why humanity and the technologically advanced race, known as the Tech, were fiercely battling over it. The underlying reasons for this interstellar conflict were secondary to the significance of this planet. Upon this crucial world lay a fortress, manned by some of the most seasoned veterans of the Terran military. Trenches spanned the entire planet, encircling cities and industrial areas to shield them from invasion. In orbit, an equally formidable defense was in place. Instead of trenches, there were rings of defense satellites and weapon emplacements, with warships patrolling the space around the planet and its vital supply lanes. Badra Pra was designed to be an impregnable stronghold, so imposing that enemies would tremble at the mere mention of it. Nevertheless, the Tech launched a daring assault on the planet, deploying 4 of their largest fleets against its defenses. The battle was brutal, with heavy losses on both sides, yet neither was willing to retreat. On the ground, the Tech managed to make planetfall with relative ease, only to find themselves facing miles-thick trench lines brimming with all manner of terrible weaponry. Humanity was determined to hold their defensive positions, forcing the enemy to break themselves against these formidable defenses. This quickly devolved into a protracted war of attrition and patience. The Tech, underestimating the resilience of these defenses, walked straight into the fire and suffered devastating losses. In less than 4 hours, they lost several thousand troops to coordinated artillery, air, and ground fire, while humanity's losses were negligible in comparison. Realizing their mistake, the Tech began to emulate humanity, constructing their own trenches and fortifications. The outcome of any engagement now hinged on who held the upper hand in space. Regular supply drops and troop rotations became exceedingly difficult due to the ongoing spaceborne conflict. As often happens in prolonged standoffs, the soldiers grew bored and, in some cases, desperate. On the day the battle would ultimately be decided, no one realized that a small event would shift the tide in favor of humanity. The Tech would soon experience the full might and determination of humanity, a revelation that would shake them to their core. It was a seemingly fine morning. The silence over the trenches was deceptive, liable to be shattered at any moment by artillery or gunfire. Yet, none came. The Tech commander watched the birds in the sky, sipping a hot beverage akin to human coffee. This drink provided him with the extra alertness he needed, especially on these days when the most notable occurrences were exchanges of insults between the two sides. Little did he know that this calm would soon be broken by a pivotal event that would alter the course of the battle and the war. A pot shot was fired, not with the intention to inflict damage, but simply to remind the enemy of our presence. As the Lord Commander, I shifted my focus to the device we were constructing. This device was a 2-pronged mechanism. The first component was designed to project a movable shield that, theoretically, could withstand an orbital strike. This shield would enable our troops to advance on the enemy trenches without the constant threat of death. The second component was a directed energy weapon, capable of leveling entire city blocks or even targeting an orbiting capital ship with significant impact. This weapon would be highly effective in softening targets ahead of our main assault, in a way that current artillery could not. At that moment, only the cannon portion of the device was built, and it was not yet fully operational. Several simulations still needed to be run before it could be deployed. Despite this, I was confident that once the shield platform was completed, we could launch a proper assault. However, a sense of unease settled over me as a heavy fog rolled in, partially obscuring the sky. I issued a few orders to ensure that any potential attack could be countered during such weather conditions. Unexpectedly, a shape emerged from the mist, and it was clearly not one of our own. As a member of the tech species, I knew our appearance well. Tall with 6 limbs, 4 arms, and 2 legs, the second pair of arms now considered vestigial. Our bodies are lightly furred, with avian-like heads and long, stinger-tipped tails, resembling a hybrid of a bird, scorpion, and dog. This comparison, often made by humans, did not offend us, as we understood the need to relate unfamiliar species to known creatures from their home worlds. What emerged from the mist was a human. They were significantly smaller than us, lacking the extra limbs, fur, and tail, which seemed so wrong in my eyes. I anticipated a human in power armor, known to be exceedingly devastating against us, but instead, this human walked casually through our trench, dressed in what they called shorts and a shirt, with messy hair and the beginnings of a beard. Their untied boots flopped around their feet as they walked. We were all so stunned that no one moved as the human approached the cannon controls, which regrettably were exposed due to the design of the cannon. The human stared at the controls for what felt like hours. Just as I was about to rally a war cry and charge, the human finally moved. Time seemed to slow as I watched their hand, with only 4 fingers, extend 1 digit, the index finger, and begin to descend toward the control panel. No one moved or even breathed as the finger pushed a button. Nothing happened, and the human seemed confused, repeatedly pressing the button and then holding it down. When this didn't work, they let out a huff of annoyance and started pressing other buttons until one finally did something. Capacitors began drawing power audibly, a low hum filling the air. Suddenly, the first button they'd been pressing lit up, signaling that the charging sequence was complete. With a soft shrug and a frown, they pushed the button one more time. The sky split in 2 and darkened as a violet beam of energy lanced forth from the cannon. It lasted for 30 seconds before shutting down, the cannon's barrel smoking. The human looked surprised, shrugged, and uttered a sentence that would haunt me forever. "Ha, so that's what that does. Neat." They then turned around and walked casually back through the trenches. Reaching the perimeter, they climbed up and out, sauntering lazily across the open fields between our lines. A flurry of panicked comms chatter finally reached me, and as I listened with mounting horror and embarrassment, I learned that this random human, who had fired our weapon quite by chance, had caused more misfortune upon us. Our flagship was in flames. Against all odds, the stars had aligned for this one human to make an unguided and unintentional attack against the pride of our fleet using our very own weapon. All because they let their curiosity get the better of their judgment, and because I, in my shock, had simply allowed it to happen. I sat down heavily, wondering what to do. 2 hours later, word had spread far and wide, and we no longer wished to fight these humans. What new misfortunes could they heap upon us in their pursuit of victory? An hour after that, the war was over. When Corporal Flynn made it back to his stretch of the trench, he found the company commander standing there waiting for him, looking unimpressed. "Just what the hell were you thinking, Corporal?" Captain Mahuan practically spat. The corporal stared blankly at him for approximately 2 seconds, before realization crossed his face, and he grinned broadly. "I was bored, sir.